Hey guys, welcome back to our youth devotionals. This week we are going to be talking about the topic of being authentic or being real versus being fake. Ooh, yeah, we're getting into the nitty-gritty deep stuff this week, all right? So today we're really going to focus on the scripture that all of this is going to be based out of. And now, in my personal opinion, this is a great time for this topic to be discussed because we're just coming out of our youth summit and we talked about being unfiltered, right? We talked about what it meant to actually be real, to take off that mask. You know, the last series of our youth summit, Pastor Gary preached and he talked about that was his whole message, was taking off that mask to figure out what was really underneath of us, what was really on the inside, the real us. So we're going to dive deeper into that this week, okay? And the scripture that we're going to focus things out of is Luke 37 through 46. Now, just to set the stage for you a little bit, all right, this was, we're going to read this section of scripture is about a conversation that Jesus has with one of the Pharisees, okay? And if you don't know anything about the Pharisees, they were very religious people, okay? They did things by the book, not almost, to their detriment, meaning they were so law-bound and so religious-based that it kept them from really doing the will of God. But that's what they focused on, the laws and following the laws, and they made sure that they called everyone out who didn't follow the laws. Okay, so in the scripture, we're going to look at it. A Pharisee invites Jesus into his house to have a meal with him. All right, so I'm going to read the scripture aloud, and I'm actually going to read it in the Message version because I like the way that it is worded and phrased better. And it starts off, "When he finished that talk, a Pharisee asked him to dinner. He entered his house and sat right down at the table. The Pharisee was shocked and somewhat offended when he saw that Jesus didn't wash up before the meal. But Jesus said to him, 'I know you Pharisees burnish the surface of your cups and plates so that they sparkle in the sun. But I also know that your insides are maggoty with greed and secret evil. You stupid Pharisees! Didn't the one who made the outside also make the inside? Turn both your pockets and your hearts inside out and give generously to the poor. Then your lives will be clean, not just your dishes and your hands.'" Okay, now we're going to keep going, but just to kind of give you a little bit more detail. During this time, during Jesus' time, it was ceremonial for people before they sat down to have a meal to go in and wash their hands and make sure that their hands were clean. They also did that with their feet. It was just sort of this, like one of those old-time laws that the Pharisees were very apt to follow and wanted to be followed. And so Jesus came in, making a point, like Jesus always does, to not do that. He went right into the Pharisee's house, didn't wash his hands, and so the Pharisee called him out on it. He's like, "Why didn't you wash your hands? That you're supposed to." Jesus then goes on to say, "You worry so much about what's on the outside and making everything on the outside look good. If you forget that the person, God, who made the outside, also made the inside, and that's what he cares about." And so he goes on then to say that your insides are maggoty. Okay, that's a pretty bold statement. I mean, think of maggots. They're the nasty little worm things that come when stuff is rotting and when you leave your trash out in the sun and it is hot and yucky and it smells. Maggots infest those areas. Okay, maggots are disgusting. If you've ever seen them or been around them, they're gross. They make me sick, okay, but they're disgusting. Jesus compares the Pharisees' hearts to that, their insides to that. That's a very bold statement. Okay, now we're going to read a little bit more on. Jesus said, "I've had it with you, you hopeless, you Pharisees, you frauds. You keep meticulous account books, tithing on every nickel and dime you get, but manage to find loopholes for getting around basic matters of justice and God's love. Careful bookkeeping is commendable, but the basics are required." Okay, so again, Jesus is taking a jab at him, telling him they do a great job at keeping good records and tithing on every little thing that they get. Now, tithing is good, but when it binds you like it does with the Pharisees and it makes you focus more on the law than the basics of just loving people and loving God, then it's an issue. And that's just what Jesus is saying. They're so concerned with the outside and making sure everything on the outside looks good to everyone else that they forget and don't notice that their insides are rotting away. He goes on, and we're almost done here. He goes on to say, "You're ridiculous and you're frauds. You love sitting at the head tables at church dinners, and you love preening yourselves in radiance of public flattery. You frauds. You're just like unmarked graves." Now listen, because this is like a dagger to the heart. Jesus is comparing these people to graves. Dead, where you put dead bodies that people walk over. He says, "You're just like unmarked graves. People walk over that nice grassy surface, never suspecting the rot and the corruption that is 6 feet under." I mean, Jesus he just flat out tells him how it is. You guys are rotting away. You guys don't care about anything. The only thing that you do care about doesn't matter because you want to please everyone else out here and put on a mask instead of really looking on the inside and pleasing me. And that's what we're getting at today. I mean, that's a pretty bold comparison if we look at that scripture and compare it to our life. If we're wearing a mask, Jesus is telling us that our insides are like maggots. Jesus is telling us that our insides are like a rotting grave that people are walking over and they don't know. Okay, they look at us and from the outside, they like what they see. They like the clothes that we wear. They like the Instagram page that we put up, that we control what pictures go out there, the TikTok videos. They like all of that. But do they really know what's on the inside? Do they really know what's in the heart? That's what we're going to talk about in video number 2 in session number 2. Okay, so like I said, this first video, we just wanted to dive into the scripture. When we come back and we do video number 2, we're going to look at some of those masks. We're going to look at maybe some of that ugly stuff that's in there that we don't really want to show people. Okay, but before we do, I want to leave you with this question. All right, and we're going to segue this question into session number 2. And I want you to think about it. That's your homework, to think about this question. Okay, because this was the question that Jesus was posing to the Pharisees. What are you most concerned with? Are you more concerned with pleasing those people and getting the approval of everyone else? Or are you more concerned about getting the approval of God? Which one is your actions lining up with? Okay, so think about that. We'll see you with session 2.